To answer what is emotional preparation, a person has to be able to know themselves enough to be able to know what an emotion is. See, what emotional preparation technique is it's the technique to be able to self-stimulate their emotional life. But this is different than what it is to be able to try and use feelings for your acting work. Now, what I'm saying is extremely key because it's rather important that you can start to understand the differences between feelings and emotions. And a lot of people, when they're using emotional preparation and they're asking themselves the question of what is emotional preparation technique, they think that they can use feelings that come and go so quickly they can't be able to resonate with it. And then what they end up doing is they end up being very missing the boat with their emotional preparation because they're not able to understand that there's a major difference. There's a reason why it's called emotional preparation. The reason why it's called emotional preparation is because it has to do with an emotion. It doesn't have to do with a feeling. A feeling can be very important to work with if you know how and study how. But it's not feeling preparation, it's emotional preparation. And that's because this really does connect answering the question of what is emotional preparation or what is emotional preparation technique. So let's explore this and figure out how to be able to approach what it is and the purposes of it, and also we'll look at see how we can actually use it ourselves as actors. Okay, so let's break this down. The first thing that emotional preparation, to answer the question of what is emotional preparation, is we have to understand that emotional preparation is a technique. It's a technique of being able to do what? It's a technique to be able to get something that's internal and make it active and have it interactive in acting. So we're dealing with the ability to understand that emotional preparation technique is an actual technique. This is something that we can learn. This is a craft that we can be able to understand. And we're literally learning how to be able to craft our emotions. Now, we have to understand that emotions and feelings are very different. There is a feeling that sometimes you can work with feelings, but only after they become emotions. Because sometimes feelings and emotions can have the same label. They can be anger. You can have a feeling of anger, and yet it comes and it goes. Or you can have a feeling or an emotion instead of a feeling of anger, and what you'll end up being is in a different situation because it's an emotion rather than a feeling. So there's a very important reason why this is key. Because if you're interested in understanding what is emotional preparation or what is emotional preparation's technique, you have to be able to understand that you are looking to be able to get emotions, not feelings. And there's a very simple trick that I use to be able to do this with actors. You use what is something called a meaning. So you use meaning, something of meaning or something of importance to the actor to be able to tie the bridge together between a feeling and an emotion. And this is something that we're able to do using the craft of acting. So we're using the craft of acting to understand what is emotional preparation. And we're using the craft of acting to be able to bridge feelings and then resonate with those feelings until they become emotions. So it's vital to be able to resonate and use resonation with ourselves as actors, what ends up happening is you have something that has a constant ebb and flow. So there's this continuicity that happens with your feeling. And that's the point where, in my opinion, your feeling starts to become an emotion. Is it becomes to get enough through traffic to be able to actually be consistent. So instead of a feeling that's sometimes fleeting, a feeling that might just come and go and you're not sure what it was, this is something that's an emotion that starts to stay, or it's a consistent feeling. The feeling doesn't go away. So when you've got this thing where the feeling doesn't go away any longer, then you've got something called an emotion. So when you're working with what is emotional preparation, you have to be able to understand how to be able to achieve emotion, not just a fleeting feeling. And although there's other lessons on this topic that have been done or are in the midst of being done, the reality is that a feeling and an emotion are two separate things. So look at the ability that you have when you're attempting this thing of doing this process called what is emotional preparation technique. So a lot of actors make these mistakes. They get a fleeting feeling, or they get actually also mixed up with the idea. So they have the idea of emotionally preparing, and then they have a small feeling with it, and then they think that they've achieved emotional preparation, and then they go and apply themselves into their acting. But what ends up happening is nothing. Nothing happens because it's not strong enough, and nothing happens because they're not involved in emotion. You have to understand this. It's the involvement of emotion. Do you understand this? The involvement of emotion is what is emotional preparation. Now there's the ways to be able to use this has to be first the emotional preparation of what's internal inside of yourself. So you can use all of these intricate techniques to be able to figure out great ideas, to be able to come up with fantastic ideas, and then apply different feelings that you have or quibbles of intuition about the stuff having to do with that. And then what you have to be able to be patient enough to do is you have to be willing to really let the emotional preparation resonate. So you let it resonate until it becomes an emotion. When it becomes an emotion, then the emotional preparation technique can start to form itself, and you'll start to feel things more than just feelings. You'll feel an emotion. You'll feel a constant flow. That's another way that some people describe this. Some people describe this as being a constant flow. When people make references to very good acting work being the conscious stream or conscious river, they're making references to the ability of having emotion versus a feeling. They may not know that they're making that reference, but they are making that reference because there is a huge difference between having something active in you versus having something that's not active in you, that's just the idea and just a fleeting feeling. And you don't want to achieve only a small piece of what is emotional preparation. You want to achieve a larger piece of the entire, hopefully you really want to achieve the entire enchilada of every single thing having to do with that emotional aspect. Because then you could run the gamut with your improvisations or with your acting work, and you can run the gamut with your emotional life within scenes. So the massive difference between those two elements are a difference between whether or not you'll end up believing what is emotional preparation technique, or if you'll end up thinking that you've already tried that and you don't think it's going to keep working for you because you haven't tried it properly. You haven't actually had a technique. So go back and understand that everything you're studying with emotional preparation technique is actually a technique to be able to activate your emotions, not just activate your feelings, and not just activate your ideas. And then you'll be able to understand that when you have those emotions hit you, they become quite intense sometimes. And here's an example. Let's say you have anger over disappointment of how someone's treated you. And at first you might start out with that element of anger, thinking that the way that you're going to go through this is you're going to become angry, and you might become very angry. But touching on that element of anger, because you know that it's a strong idea, and you may be afraid of really going into that emotion, you might instead choose to just stay within the feeling or touch upon the feeling and keep the idea of anger, and then go out into your acting work and work with that element. But the reality is, that's not what emotional preparation is. That's not emotional preparation. That's working with a fleeting idea and a fleeting emotion. It doesn't have a fleeting, it's a fleeting feeling. It doesn't have the context of emotion because it's not being felt by you other than just an idea. So if we put another example and you look at the anger that you might feel or how someone's treated you, and then you wonder how that might be. And then you go through all the different thoughts of how that might be because of the anger. You may or may not feel that you've really activated yourself when it becomes a real emotion, because it might sneak up on you, which the good ones do. The really good emotional preparations sneak up on you, and you don't even realize how affected you are until you're actually working. And what happens is, if you look at that example of the anger and you realize that you're starting to be affected and you're having thoughts of involvement of that anger, what that anger does to you. And then the next step is you end up having feelings of that anger. Well, you're starting to achieve emotional preparation, but you're not quite there yet. See, then you want to reminisce. You want to resonate. You want to really start to allow yourself to feel the anger of somebody being completely betrayal of you. And then when you do, you will let that go deep. So instead of having it be something that's in the head, you've let it have a feeling or two, and you're starting to let the feeling happen. And then because you've let the feeling happen, you can feel it and you can sense it, that you've got the emotion going deeper. Now, it might take 2 minutes for you to be angry enough to be able to know full well that you have an emotion versus a feeling. But this is what is emotional preparation. That is the technique that most people learn or think they've learned, and they haven't quite got it. And meanwhile, it takes 20 years to get. It doesn't just take a few years. I mean, you might be able to achieve this with 5 years hard work every single day, or every, I don't know, quite often working with it. But the reality is, and you can do quite a lot of things with a very simple amount of information, which is great. But the reality of really being able to dig in, to be able to feel those anger or the resonation of the emotional preparation, whatever it ends up being, whatever shade of color of emotion, it will take you quite a long time to be able to achieve certain depths. And the depths of emotion end up becoming this, you feel it. You feel something almost like you're swallowing something larger than yourself. And it goes, and you can feel it kind of going down in you if you're sensitive to it this way. Now, a lot of people have different sensations to how this works. I'm just describing my own. And the feeling will end up possibly even filling up your entire chest, where you feel like you can feel that there's an emotion going on, and you've got a lot of thoughts about the topic of what it is that you started with your emotional preparation on, and then you've ended up being able to know that you have feelings about the topic, about the betrayal that caused the anger, and then you don't maybe know how to apply that right away, so you're kind of sitting in it and you're not even sure if it's real or not. And sometimes that exact emotional preparation that I am practically in, even though it's not really seeable in terms of maybe some people can see it, maybe some people can't see it. Do I feel my anger right now? Yeah. Is it intense? Maybe not so much, but it might take some time to get intense. Or you might be surprised with how much the betrayal actually hits you when you start looking at stuff, because you take that emotional preparation, you take what is emotional preparation technique, and you apply it into an exercise. And if the other person doesn't activate it in you, you may not think that you've done it correctly, but you have. And what I've done to myself right now in front of your camera has actually achieved some level of irritation in me. To be quite honest, I have a small headache, I feel a little bit agitated, and that's part of the emotional preparation. So, has the emotional preparation worked? Yes. How does it work? How much is it going to work? It really depends on the acting dynamics, because I could go deeper into my anger. I may not want to go deeper into my anger. Now, and if a person that's working with me gets to know my acting work well enough, they might know that I don't want to go in deeper, and they might be the perfect partner for me, because they might be able to know that that's the thing that they have to be able to go into, and they have to be able to point out. So they might be the one that are able to work with it, because they know. But that exact same preparation might apply when you're looking at one thing and not do anything to you for your exercise. Or you may not think it does. But what it does is so subtle, you're not quite sure how it is that it works or not. So this is part of the dynamics of acting. And this is why it's such an intricate thing, and this is why people spend careers trying to figure out this topic, because it's such an interesting thing. Acting in the creative work. So you activate your emotional life, and then you're open to seeing what it is that's going to work or not. And you don't know sometimes if it's the other person that's dealt with you in a certain way that's caused the anger. Or if you're in a situation where that anger is just puzzling you, and that might be the result of your humanity having concern over your anger, and that might be a result of what it is that's going to be part of the interaction with your acting. Because if you take that exact same preparation and you put it up with 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 18 different people, you're going to see different results from each of those preparations. And that is part of the answer to the question, what is emotional preparation? Because what is emotional preparation has to do with being able to take an emotion and being able to then put it up against the different partners, acting partners, so that you're able to see what actually happens. And then you do the same thing with the different circumstances. You can apply the exact same emotional preparation to 18 different circumstances plus and come up with different results. And if the director and the actor understand that the preparation experimentation is an experimentation, what is emotional preparation is an experimentation. It's not something that's concrete, because as soon as you make it concrete, you've made it into a performance, of which there's different acting styles, which can be very interesting. So taking the element of what emotional preparation is into context and understanding that there's all sorts of elements that you can feel when you're going through this. And when I say feel, I don't mean fleeting feeling. I mean emotional feeling. Encompassing emotion that when activated in you, you respond differently because you have the emotion. And that's the key. That's the thing of how you can achieve it. And that's how you can achieve emotional preparation. Because you're looking to be able to achieve yourself in heightened life circumstance. And the heightened life circumstance is you being in an emotional condition. And you're achieving your ability to be in an emotional condition has to do with your ability to emotionally prepare. That is what you can do yourself to be able to have this emotion and have this involvement. And then you see how the involvement interacts with your emotion. And you see how much it encompasses or doesn't. And then you can go back and examine why outside after the work's finished, because you don't want to examine the stuff when you're inside of the work. You want to keep it active. You want to have the experience continue to be open. So take the understanding of what is emotional preparation as the understanding of what and how to be able to get the emotional life of a feeling, but not a feeling, but of life. How do you get an emotional resonance of life into your acting work? Because that is your actual simple, but it does take a lot of complicated, it's not that complicated, it's simple, but the steps to it might be able to be first seem complicated because it's an emotion. An emotion never wants to be seen. That's the reason why audiences are so captivated by emotions, because emotions are an actual element that emotion is real. So you do an emotion that's real. They know through your emotion that they're watching content that's real as a creator or as an actor. So you can use the element of emotional preparation to then be able to put that into your work by activating it and then interacting. And you interact in whatever way happens. You don't try to plan out where to put that. If you need to plan out different sections of the emotional preparation, you can do so just before working. But during working, there's copious planning mechanisms for actors. It's very interesting, all the different techniques for different things for planning out emotions and such. But when it comes time to do your acting work, the only thing you want to be focused on is living the experience. So even though there's all sorts of interesting, intriguing things having to do with stuff that doesn't involve the emotional experience, you want to achieve more emotional experience by putting yourself in a condition of emotion to be able to achieve what is emotional preparation. And really know for a fact that you've actually accomplished and tried it out before you throw it away and say it's a technique that doesn't work. So, listen, I've learned this work for a very, very, very long time. It's been a privilege to learn this work, and I have studied with some very, very good teachers. And I've also studied to teachers that have no idea, or very little idea about what to do. And it's been interesting because even watching the beginning teachers, a lot of times I would be sitting in their classes when they were learning how to just do normal acting. And what it is that a lot of teachers don't understand what is emotional preparation to the level that their involvement is. That, I mean, some actors have joked about what do people expect from the actor, them to be a magician, to be able to perform, to be able to put emotion out there. Well, you don't want to perform emotion. You don't want, no one's asking anybody to be a magician. What they're looking for to do is they're looking for the ability for emotional life to be consistently in the acting work or the work as a creator on video camera or whatever it is. And that element is the element of emotional preparation that puts life into art or puts life into work. So the audience can then resonate with those same emotional desires, whether it be a desire to learn something, whether it be a desire in order to try to do anything. It could be a lot of different things. But when you're dealing with what is emotional preparation, you want to be able to achieve the ability to carry that emotional life and then go and put that emotional life into art, into craft. And your ability to craft emotional preparation is the only thing stopping you from being able to achieve that. So it might take, and you can learn a lot of things within just a short amount of time that can start to be able to start on a journey of the experimentation of emotional preparation. And that will allow you to be able to grow as an actor, because what emotions actually do is it grows people as human beings and as artists. So if you're able to work with your emotions in this simple ways, and even with after a month or two of learning emotional preparation, you can have fantastic results that are what I use this word called filmable. If it's a filmable word, it's a filmable quality, it's that's the word that I made up to explain it. Because if you're filmable, it means that you've done the job of carrying over the emotional preparation into your acting work, or the emotional preparation into your creating on video camera. And that element is something that not a lot of people actually know how to do consistently. And that's an element that you are able to achieve consistently if you just continue to study, make sure and be accurate to, don't be afraid to listen or watch several of these videos or other materials that I have out there on emotional preparation, because the goal of it is to be able to achieve the skill set of having emotional preparation in acting and in creating.